want to welcome you to this section. I have my national president here who would do the opening remarks. Please, Mr. President, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Timothy from Lagos Business School, and my members. We are all welcome to this very important meeting and engagement. I hope that we will give all the needed and required attention to get as much as we can from LBS. And at the end of it all, whatever questions we have, please, we should feel free to ask. It might interest you. We've come together with LBS as partners, and they are ready at any given time to assist the cause of our sector. So please, let's cooperate. And LBS, I assure you that our people will be up and doing and will benefit from your immense wealth of experience in this field. So thank you and welcome everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, we welcome all members to this workshop. I'm sure it will be a time well spent. Please, let's give it the maximum participation that we can. Learning is never enough. We can always learn every day, and so this is an opportunity to learn new things. My first vice, team, if you don't mind, my first vice is also on this platform and is also in charge of training. I think you should say a few words. Mr. George. Josh, are you there, sir? Okay, Tim, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Eddie. So before I hand over to my colleague, Dr. Banjo Adetunji, for the first presentation, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of my other colleagues here. So we have Dr. Banjo will be taking the next presentation. We have Emmanuel Omukoro, who is one of our research associates on the team. We have Lanre, Samuel, we have Tobechuku, and we have Timmy. They all work on the Sustainable and Inclusive Digital Financial Services Initiative, and they have worked with me to, put this together as well. So I'm sure some of you know us already. So our core focus is on how we can bridge the financial inclusion gap in Nigeria. And we've been working with financial services providers, in the area of enhancing their capacity to create and deliver compelling value proposition. That's the appropriate products for people who regard as the excluded segments. So it's our pleasure to meet everyone here. We've been working hand in hand with NAMB, and NAMB is considered by us as a very critical stakeholder in the financial inclusion ecosystem. And we're happy to be doing this, and definitely we'll be happy to also take this further after this engagement. Thank you very much. So I invite my colleague, Dr. Olubanjo Adetunji, to take the floor now. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Timothy. It's an honor to be there. Yeah. And good morning, Mr. President, distinguished executives and members of my colleagues. So in the next few minutes, I will just provide a background to this toolkit, or actually inform our decision to develop this resource. I hope I can screen the host. Okay. So talking about disruptions, generally, it's not a question of if disruption will come. It's actually when it will come and what form it will take. We're currently in this in the crisis situation, and disruptions generally can actually take two forms. either a crisis situation or business disruption. We don't pray for another crisis, whether it's health crisis or political crisis, natural disasters, and so on. Those ones are just crisis situations that affect our businesses. Anything that affects our customers also affect us. Even in many cases now, we are even have to close our shops. So why we don't pray for that, although we are currently in one, so this is one essentially disruption as a result of an health crisis, really, but business disruptions will always come. Innovators will always come to disrupt the business environment. So how do we mitigate the effect of this disruption? How do we adapt our processes and our strategies so that we're able to survive disruption? You agree with me that many businesses have actually folded up in this last 1 year as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. So if they have something in place, a model, resilience model, some of them will have been able to respond to this crisis and I will still be in business. So we don't want this to happen again, especially in this industry, the financial services industry. So that's why we kind of came up with this idea that we have a resilience model toolkit to share with stakeholders, our providers, and you happen to be one of the first group, the first group that we're sharing this one with. So we really welcome your feedback, and yeah, we really work because it's a product that has not really been finalized. So I also have another resource person here that will also be leading the discussion in terms of this toolkit. So how do businesses respond to crisis situations? And that's a big question that we'll be looking at, because they have to mitigate, in the short term, they have to mitigate the effect of a crisis situation or the effect of a disruption, and quickly adapt their business strategies and operating models so that they are able to survive the disruption, either it's a crisis or it's a business disruption, for example, a technology disruption, a new entrant to the field, somebody has just got, for example, in your field, somebody has gone to the CBN to obtain a line. Even nowadays, CBN even has kind of what they call a sandbox. If you have an idea, you can pitch your idea. They will just allow you to launch that idea. What the effect might be disastrous for players that are in this. So you quickly respond to that. And that's what this toolkit is all about. So you should have a model in place so that when you'll be monitoring the industry, whether a crisis or a business disruption, and how to quickly respond to it so that you don't go under. So generally, like I said, so let me just minimize this. Or even, let me stop the video and minimize it. So disruptions like to business activities like the one we have currently, this one is as a result of an health crisis. So when you have this, it requires operating models and business strategies of businesses to be changed, because you quickly have to change or remember, when this thing happened. I remember when we recorded the first case in Nigeria I think on the 28th of February. They had to be locked down, restriction in mobility. Even our customers, many of our customers are MSMEs, so they have to close their shops and everything. Really, so you quickly have to. What do we have to do to quickly change our operating model in the short term, and also change our strategy so that we're able to survive it? Because what do we do? Do we respond? And that's what this toolkit is all about. Because for this health crisis, they activated the public health social measure that will restrict, or they're still restricting movement even in many places. What we even have now is lockdown. We don't have they've not totally removed the lockdown. In many nations of the world, there are still complete lockdown. So services will be closed and everything. This is just one example. Even in political crisis situation, even if nobody comes out to say don't go out. I remember probably I was in 93 or so, this June 93 thing. So they will just declare stay at home. Some maybe students or some groups, but nobody. I remember for 3 days nobody came out. And and everything. So how do businesses survive in this kind? Even natural disasters, all these are crisis situations. How do we survive and how do we continue to provide financial services, especially for us? That's our primary concern here. So even changes in competitive space will require you as a provider of financial services to adopt these models. So that's what we're presenting, so that you have these models. They took it, it's a toolbox, so that we just ready to use, so that we know the crisis situation, and then you fine-tune it before in expectation of a disruption. Why these people coming and telling us that there will be another disruption? I'm not saying or praying for another crisis in this, but it's one thing that is sure is there will always be business disruption. New entrant coming into the industry to just disrupt the whole environment and chase people out. I remember one case, Kodak film. Really, nobody actually knew then that every these days now we'll be using our phone to take very, very, very good pictures and be posting those pictures around. When it came, Kodak did not even take it seriously. And look at Kodak today, nowhere to be found. That's technology disruption, and we'll continue to have it. So, and this toolkit also, it's just for crisis. No, it's for general business, general disruption, including business disruption and other crises. So, and we have evidence to actually show why we need this. Although this evidence are from disruption from crisis. For example, the PEC in their April 2020 study, in the midst of this crisis, they said that within the 3 weeks, 21 days of Nigeria, when 21 days of recording the first case in Nigeria, business outlets were down by more than half, more than 50% within the first 3 weeks, and 80% of this, according to ASEAN, 80% of MSM is actually recorded. These are your customers, really. They recorded a decline in profit from COVID-19, with 33% of them recording more than 50% a decline. You can just imagine, these are customers. And what are the leading coping strategies according to the ASEAN study last year also? So the 3 leading strategies are just, they started offering discounts. Just imagine when your customers are offering discounts on their goods and services, you just sell them off, and they won't be able to repay loans and even come back for new loans. So they start skipping loans. And these are, oh, I can't keep myself. So the loans were skipped, and I know the impact on your business. And some of them start cutting, many of them start cutting employers. And if employees were cut, some of these people are even some of our customers. So we all know what the impact will be on our businesses. And even from this Lagos Trader project, another study in 2020, more than half of Lagos traders now, they are now using electronic payments. So it's also telling us what the outlook will look like in terms of crisis situation, what we'll be looking at going forward in terms of channels of delivering our services to our customers. So the objective, before I actually hand debating to our resource person, so could you just take us through the 2 key objectives of this toolkit, the resilience models toolkit, just to provide you, our FSP, financial service provider, with key processes so that we are able to mitigate the impact of disruptions when they come, or if they come, when they come on your operations, and to ensure that your provision of financial services are not disrupted, especially for our own target groups, which are underbanked and unbanked, which also remain your major target customers, and to provide you and other FSP with viable action steps to adapt their strategies so that when you are able to mitigate the short-term impact, you can now adapt your strategy so that in the medium and long term, so that you survive disruptions when they come, and ensure that you sustainably provide financial services, especially to the underserved and the financially excluded. So now I will hand over to Toolkit, who will walk us through this the toolkit, the resilience toolkit models, and we just we'll provide you with the toolkit. So we'll also entertain feedback from you so that we'll incorporate that one into the toolkit, and before we share the final toolkit, so that you can have kind of a document, a working document that you can, let me quickly perform a test. what stage am I? Do I even have anything in place? If the disruption happen now, would I go under? Will I be able to mitigate it and adapt my strategy? This will provide you with the needed resources that you need so that you won't even fear, when disruption comes. It's not if disruption will come, it's when they come. So over to you, Aramide, resource person who will quickly walk us through the toolkit itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Banjo. Can everybody hear me, please?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Banjo, for the great background on the toolkit. And good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. President. All protocols duly observed. So as Dr. Banjo was saying, unfortunately, the COVID hit a lot of us quite suddenly, and it found many institutions and firms trying to struggle to adapt to the new environment and find ways to change their processes to continue to be able to offer services. And at SIDFS, and as you as our stakeholders, we understand that the financial industry is like the driver of almost every industry. Financial inclusion providers are actually catering to the people that unfortunately would be most affected by disruptive situations. And we understand that we need to find a way to support financial inclusion providers on adapting to sudden, so not just COVID, but any sudden crisis that might affect the way that they're able to deliver financial services. And it's very important to emphasize that, even though this current disruption might have come suddenly, it's good to be able to prepare for future disruptions. So there's an element of preparedness, putting things in place to be able to cope with any future, disruption in the business that might come up. Putting things in place to be able to adapt at the time that the disruption has happened, and also even having a strategy in place to be able to adapt to the changing environment, because definitely the way COVID has come and the disruption that has hit us and the current changes that have come up, things are definitely going to be happening differently. Right now, things are already happening differently. It's going to continue to happen differently. So we also need to be able to adapt to the changed environment. Now, before we even prescribe recommendations, we need to know where the gaps are. And for each financial services provider, the gaps might be different, because in your business model, you might have put things in place that automatically protect you. And there might be some areas where you might need that support. So we feel that before we start giving recommendations, do this, do this, do that, there actually has to be a test to even know where the gaps are for each individual institutions. So there are certain questions that we'll ask about how your activities are being carried out and how the current disruption has affected your activities, to be able to know which areas we can recommend actions for. It is useful because there are things that you might not need. And also, with the kind of business model that you have, it is wiser not to be expending energy on actions that you don't really need to take, or actions that you have already done, even without realizing it. So we have a test. So as part of the toolkit, we have a diagnostic test, which is kind of like when you come to a doctor and the doctor asks you, is it a headache? Is it a fever? Is it fever at night or in the morning? So we want to know where the gaps are before we now direct you to areas of the toolkit where you should take recommendations from. So I'll just pause now. If you don't mind, I will need to stop my video because of bandwidth. And what we want to do now is we just want to launch a short poll. So the poll is going to be like samples of the questions that are embedded in that toolkit, just for you to have a feel and an understanding of the kind of questions that we're going to be asking you. So please hold on. Samuel, if you could just please launch the toolkit for participants. Thank you. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can see.
Yes,
okay,
we can
so,
see.
Okay, thank you. So please just give us a few minutes of your time and answer the questions. This is like a snapshot of the questions that you're going to be seeing in the toolkit. So we just need you to get a feel of it. So please just go ahead. I'll and give everyone a chance to answer the questions. Thank you.
In Nigeria, a large proportion of people live in slums and unplanned settlements because of their
Please, if there's any technical issue answering the poll, just let us know. Thank you.
Can I suggest that maybe while we're trying to sort out the poll, maybe
no, I just submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to go through it up to the last one. Then,
to the last one, okay.
Yes. Once you are done, it will highlight submit. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to at least 20 responses and we're halfway through now. Thank you. We're almost there. Please, if you have any questions on the questions, please let me know and I'll explain what it means. Thank you. Is anybody still responding?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think we can proceed now. We're going to end the poll. Okay, so those were examples of questions that you'd be encountering in the toolkit. Please hold on, let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, from here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So so far in the past year, since the current disruption, there's been a lot of resources and articles and webinars and trainings on how to cope in the different aspects of business. There have been resources that focused on financial services industry, many other industries, and even general resources. But so far, we have not really seen resources that help you to even know your level of readiness and how you're coping. And we think that it is important to ask these questions before going into recommendations. So we looked at important areas where we think that we should know how service providers are faring before we tell them where they should look closer or what they could do. And the first thing we looked at was business resources. Now, as you were answering those questions, you probably have seen some asking you how your workforce is doing, how your market position is doing. We identified 5 main business resources that we need to diagnose and see if they're faring well and helping you to deliver on your objectives for financial services. So the first one was workforce. What we seek to know is how is your workforce performing now as compared to before the event, right? So if you had, maybe you had attendance of your staff at maybe 98%, how are they doing now? How is their productivity now? How are they meeting their KPIs now? Those are the kind of things I wanted to know regarding workforce. We also wanted to know about the finances, the liquidity, the cash position, your float. How have you been able to maintain your float in the new environment? How is the liquidity? How are you maintaining your liquidity? The third one is your market position. So for example, if one of your offices is in a remote area and people in that area usually come to your office because it's the nearest to them, they also live in remote, they're also in faraway places, and they usually come, you're probably top of mind for them when they want to carry out any financial services. But with a lockdown where there's not really any mobility, have you been able to stay top of mind for them? Have they started going to maybe other providers that actually come to their home or come to their gates to come and offer services? So we want to know how your position, your brand, your ranking, how it is right now and how compared to how it was before the event. Now, I'll pause here and say that there has to be a comparison because we want to know the degree to which the event has affected your business, has affected how you deliver those financial services. We don't want to look at it in just as for just now, because if you look at just your current position, you might not know to what extent you need to make changes to adapt. Another thing we looked at was your service delivery points. So before the lockdown, where there was free movement, as Dr. Banjo said, it's not only COVID that could cause restriction of movement. There are many kind of disruptions that could cause this restriction of movement. So in a situation where there is now restriction of movement, are you finding that some of your branches are becoming redundant, right? Are you finding that some of your customers that were a bit reluctant to use USSD codes for transfer, you find that they're now moving to digital channels? So we want to see how the disruption has affected that. We also want to see how the disruption has affected your overall strategy. So previously, I just mentioned that there might be some financial services providers that part of their strategy is that they go to people's homes. They have a lot of food soldiers. That might be their strategy. And for another, their own strategy might be that they have small service points in remote areas where they expect people to come to them. Now, in a situation where mobility is now restricted and people can't move about, right? Your strategy for making branches in remote areas, is it still working? The person that has a strategy where they have food soldiers, is it still working for them? Are the food soldiers even allowed to move about? Right? So someone that has that kind of strategy, if the government actually issued like ID cards or permits, like during that COVID time, we also had permits to move around. If the government actually issued them permits to be able to move around, you might find that their strategy is even fitting more with the current environment than another person that decided that having multiple branches will work. So we want to see that, right? Another thing that we wanted to look at, apart from business resources, is we also want to look at the activities that you are doing. If your level of cash withdrawal was very high, did it reduce during COVID? I think we can almost assume that it did. How much did it reduce? What about school fees? During the lockdown, when schools were not, where children were not going to school, of course, school fees activity could have reduced. For example, payment of NEPA bills. People were more at home, so they might have been consuming more electricity and buying more. Was there a reduction, or was there an increase? So things like that. In the end, when you put these resources into the activities that you're doing, there have to be results. We have to measure results as well. So what was the result of these changes, right? So if your workforce did not do as well during the time of COVID as they were doing before, did it directly affect your revenues? Did you notice that your revenues started reducing? If you had to start putting out more food soldiers to go to people's homes because people were not coming to branches, did it affect your costs? So those are the kind of things I want to look at, because we want to see how resilient your business has been in the face of a disruption. Ideally, things like revenues, profits in a perfect world might not change or might even increase in the time of a disruption. We want to see that. In a perfect world, that would happen. But in a less than perfect world, there might be some changes. We want to see how much you were affected by those changes. So those are the reasons why we have these questions. So I'm going to pause now and take you to the toolkits directly. As part of the, I'll take you to the question, the diagnostic directly. As part of the toolkit, there's a link embedded in it where you're going to take a survey, almost like what you just did now. But what it will do is that it will return results to you based on how you answer these questions and be able to give you an idea of the areas you should focus on in inputting practices that will help you to be able to cope in this climb. Now, please just give me 1 minute, please. So before I continue, this is meant to be as interactive as possible. So I want to get your opinion. The questions you answered, we saw that For some people, they found their service delivery channels still as useful as before. For some people, they found that the service delivery channels were not, please hold on. Okay. For some people, they found that the service delivery channels were less useful than before. Some people had feedback on the workforce. So I want to get your feedback on the questions. Do you feel like they were able to test the pulse of what you were going through during the disruption and even now? So open to any contributions from the participants. What do you think about the questions? Were they relevant? Did they make you think about, things that you experienced and how it affected the way you do your business? Which one do you think was really relevant to you? And which one do you think might have not been so relevant because your own institution did not experience any changes? Dr. Banjo, Timothy, should we cold call?
Okay, or maybe Mr. Eddie can help, to maybe call on one or two of his colleagues to help us out in that regard.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, look, Mr. Eddie, are you there? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua. Going through the 10 questions, in particular, I looked at the question, I think 3 to 6 or 3 to 5, when you break down the issue of liquidity management transfers and other activities that have been impacted or affected by the pandemic. Usually for us, we always look, well, let me say for me, I always look at the bottom line. Okay, when I saw the question, how have your revenues changed? I mean, I didn't need anybody to tell me that quickly. I know that, of course, revenues have dwindled in the last couple of months or up to 1 year now. But I don't think I really sat down to ask myself, how has my different activities like transfers, like accounts opening, like these other little activities that will dovetail to revenue and expenses. I, for one, have not really sat down. I don't think I have figures or responses on that. So when I went through this, it's something that I've noted down that I was going to really sit down and we look at as a team to see really, have we increased in our revenue? I mean, in our transfers, have we increased in these other activities? Specifically. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, this is Bimpe Ogunleye, and I want to say that for us, the pandemic actually strengthened the use of our digital channels. And one thing we found out with our customer is that at the point when there was total lockdown, pre that time, you have to keep sort of encouraging them, use this alternative channel. Now you don't have to come, do transfer, do this one, use your short code. But with the lockdown, they started asking for questions of, okay, how can I use my short code? How can I transfer and all that? And then after the lockdown, we found out that the transaction, history or track has continued to increase. People have now preferred, our customers have now preferred to say, as much as I can do through digital banking, that's the way to go to. Particularly when you are trying to safeguard health issues. We may not have increased income on all sides, but we have found out that increase in income, comparing the different sources of income that comes to the bank, normally, you know, your interest income and all that is a major source of revenue for us. But then from our non-interest income, we have found out that all related channels to digital banking and use of our ATM, use of short code, doing transfer. I think the independence that people have now become aware that it's even easier for me. Let me just do this and not get to banking hall and not touch anybody and all that. To us, we can see increase. It may not be at a sporadic rate, but that's the situation with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Does anybody else want to share? So I can respond. So I can respond to the two comments. Thank you very much for sharing what you went through. On the part of, you know, not looking at activities but seeing a change in revenues, I think that's why it's important to look at the entire gamut of your business, right? Because for some, somebody mute their mics, please. For some, you might see a reduction in some revenue generating activities. You didn't check them, but there's actually a reduction and there's an increase in some. No, eventually your results will balance out. But what you will miss out is opportunity. Because for the ones that increased, it's possible for you to be able to even devote more energy to it and see that, okay, these are the activities that are really doing well during a lockdown. So for example, like payment of electricity bills. So Mr. Joshua Ukute, for example, some of your activities might actually have started generating more revenue for you, right? But it is not apparent because one is not drilling down to what is bringing what, right? So in addition to looking at results, it's also good to look back at the chain and see what is actually bringing those results. For Ms. Adebimpe, yes. For people that asked about, you know, how to do transactions or reaching out to you that needed instructions, when we're developing the toolkit, we looked at practically every type of challenge or situation that might come up in a time when providers are not able to run their businesses normally. So you will find it interesting that there's actually a communication plan as part of the toolkit, telling you how to disseminate communication, at what time you should actually disseminate that communication so that people are aware of the alternative channels that you've brought up. And it's really very interesting that this kind of situation actually moved people into going digital, when before it was something that they would be reluctant to do. But I mean, something must change a situation, and this is where we find ourselves. And I'm sure that many people would also record increase in digital banking use. Now, part of the things about, so you remember that I had mentioned that we want to mitigate against negative effect of this kind of situation, and we want to be able to adapt. So in mitigation, perhaps if we had known or we were prepared better for this kind of condition, maybe we would have put in even more digital channels, just waiting for when people will not be able to visit the bank, or we would have even started sensitization much earlier, maybe as far as 2019, that you should learn how to do this thing. Okay, fine. Baba, you don't like to do USSD, but just know how to do it. Just write it on a piece of paper so that when things happen suddenly, people are still able to continue to make use of financial services. So that is why we have divided like the recommendations. So please hold on, let me share my screen now. Can you see my screen now? Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, from here. I
Yes,
can.
yes, I
Okay.
can.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, so that is why we have categorized the recommendations into things that should be done before the onset of a disruption, and these things can be done little by little, so that firms are not devoting all their resources into big projects. That things that firms can start practicing little by little, so that in case anything happens, you're better prepared, and things that help, and also things that help you to transform after the onset of a disruption. Now, I'll go more into the toolkit. I'm going to go through the question. So in the toolkit that we shared with you, there will be an embedded link here that will take you directly to the diagnostic test. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for start. I'm not going to go through all the questions because it has quite a lot of questions. I would advise that respond is someone that has connection error. Okay, let me just try again. Is someone that has an overall view of the firm. Someone that can tell whether revenues have increased or not. Someone that has a view of how the workforce is doing, someone that has an overall view of the activities, the change. So someone that is in a high enough to answer overall questions about the business. Let's just try one more time. Okay, so I'm having some network. We come back to this. But this was basically just to show, it's like a questionnaire that you will get through your phone, or get once you click on all this show you a sample of will come for the activities where COVID and during COVID, it will give you a scale of 1 to 10. Because on a scale of 1 to 10, if they ask you such channels, hello?
Hello, we can hear you now.
Okay, I think I lost connection for a little moment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so like I was saying, some of the questions will ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how are your activities before COVID? How are they now? And you will rank it. So for example, like the digital channels that was mentioned, maybe before COVID, all the digital channels that you put in place for people to use, they were not really using it. So you might score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe 5 over 10 before COVID. During COVID, now 8 over 10. Are the channels really booming? People are really using them. I keep referring to COVID, but it's important for you to understand that we developed this tool not just for now. It should be a continuous tool. You are able to check your resilience at every moment in time, even when nothing is happening. You should be able to check the level of your resources. You should be able to check how well you are carrying out your activities. You should be able to check your results. So it's something that you can constantly do. So when you finish doing the test, it is going to return scores to you. And the scores, can everybody see my screen? I'm showing a table now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. And the scores are going to score you based on how well your resources are doing. It's going to score you based on how well your activities are doing. and is going to score you based on the resilience practices that you have put in place. I'll come to that. So it's important to also let you know that it's not an exam. It's not a race to get A or score A or B, because there are people that might score well in some areas and not. It's just a way for you to know where to take a closer look and which recommendations you can begin to look at implementing now. So I'll just stop my screen, stop sharing. And please give me a minute. Okay, I'm having feedback that some people didn't see the results screen. Let me just share it again. Okay, so when you get your results back.
So, all right, can you put it in full screen?
Yeah, I can. Let me increase the. Okay, 1 second. Let me stop sharing. I'll do that. That might be difficult, but I've moved it to. Is the entire screen visible now?
Okay, so well, I don't know if everyone can see this, but I think it would have been more visible if it was in presentation mode. But if it's not possible, maybe we just move on because of our time.
Okay. So let me just move on because of time. Everyone will have access to this. I'll be able to digest it even better. Yeah, so we test, the results come back and you're able to categorize yourself and see which areas you need to focus more on. And the recommendations in the toolkits go from recommendations on your workforce, recommendations on your strategy, on your channels. And the thing is that a lot of bodies have already done the work on this. They've done the work. They have business continuity plans that you can easily adapt. What this toolkit does is that it tells you what to focus on, and it tells you when to focus on it. Should you be doing this at this time? Has the event happened? Is there something that you can start doing little by little now before events come, so that you are further able to build resilience and be able to withstand the effect? And what now that the event is over, because we are all praying that COVID will be over, how are you going to adapt to the new environment? What should you be doing now? So I think that is how the usefulness of the resource comes in. And like I said, it's not a one-time tool. It's something that you can continue to apply to be able to check yourself, correct yourself, and prepare yourself against any event that might come up. Because your sector is a sector that caters to people that are unfortunately most affected by situations like this. So it's very important for microfinance institutions to continue to be able to render financial services in a new environment, so that we can continue to further financial inclusion. So I'll just pause there and see if you have any questions. Questions, comments on the toolkit?
Okay, good morning again. I was going to say, since we didn't see the toolkit itself, I don't know if it will be a good place to make comment. I thought we were going to open the toolkit so that we see how it works, so that we can now make general comments. Thank you.
Yes, so for some reason the network is not allowing it. I'm trying again now as we speak, but we're still open to questions. I can still answer any questions that you might have. The toolkit is online. You can answer it on your phone, you can answer it on your computer, and once you get to the end of all the questions, it's going to ask you questions on different parts of your business. Once you get to the end of the questions, it's going to return a PDF. So the PDF is something you can even begin scoring based on your activities, your business resources, so that you can know where to focus on. As part of the recommendations, there are also links to many resources that are already out there. Bodies like IFC, like EFINA have already put out a lot of resources on how, financial inclusion, people in financial inclusion space can adapt to the current environment. And we have put those resources as part of the toolkit so as not to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of help out there, and we have kind of collated it into this recommendation so that you can even go further depending on what areas you want to look at. Unfortunately, it's still not coming up. Timothy, can I share the link with you and see if you can open it from your end?
Okay, yes, please share the link.
Okay, so if I understand well, the toolkit is just like it's like a self-assessment tool, know where you are and what you need to do, if I understand you correctly.
Exactly. It's a self-assessment tool to know where you are, to know where you are, and then it also gives recommendations based on that result. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
See my screen. Okay, so this is the first to go through the time. Simply ask information. It asks role within the business, which can here to be microfinance institution, under this category or this category. And once you click the next that you've had a sample or
Unfortunately, I think she's having some challenges with her network. So hopefully she'll be able to join us as soon as possible again.
Yes,
yes, I'm back again.
Just before, okay. I wanted to sort of piggyback on the last question to clarify, is the toolkit not sort of also an avenue to do, well, not just a diagnostic as the last speaker mentioned, but also to be able to do a refit and reconfiguration of the business without necessarily having to employ a consultant? I don't know if is that correct surmise?
Oh yes, sure. Thank you for the comment, Professor Ajayi. So yes, it basically, so the normal things that you would employ a consultant to check for, they're already in that self-assessment. And if you have been able to have a good view of the business and you have information on how your business is doing, it's very easy for you to be able to answer. And like we mentioned, it's a continuous thing, January, and you see areas where you need to put in resilience practices. So things like maybe putting in more digital channels, or putting in or looking at your workforce and seeing how they can be more productive. You can take the test again. The link is always there. You can take the test again in 6 months and see if there has actually been an improvement based on the things that you've put in place. So it's very continuous. It's supposed to last for a very, very long time. It's not specific to COVID. We've not based it just on COVID. We've based it on any event that might affect the normal way that you offer your services. And of course, we understand that not every institution is going to have millions of naira, or is it dollars, to be able to hire consultants that will ask you questions and to get answers that you already know and that you can input into the diagnostic to be able to understand where you are. So I hope that's responded well to your comment, Professor Jai.
Yes, that is good. And I'm thinking that, for example, the deposit money banks have done very well, at least the big ones, because they can afford the consultants, have in-house, resources to get resilient and react so quickly. And I'm wondering whether, I don't know whether you had discovered this in the interaction so far. When we go down, when we go to maybe microfinance and so on, do they feel like they are being squeezed by the other and bigger banks? Is the landscape being made more challenging for them, such that they also need to become more nimble? I don't know if that had been dealt with, because I'm sorry I joined a bit late.
Okay, so I think when we started out, the idea was to look at everybody that is benefiting from financial services, and then go deeper into people at the bottom of the pyramid that are very, very dependent on and now look at the firms that are serving them. So far, what we've seen, and because of the resources and capabilities that they already have, it was very easy for them to be able to activate channels that they had in place. It was very easy for them to immediately start building digital channels, because there's the advantage of having a lot of resources. For some other financial institutions, they have institutional support from more developed countries who are able to quickly, help them to adapt. So they adapted very quickly. That's for them. And then also for their clients are more technologically savvy. So for example, we had a participant here that said that a lot of clients had to start to adapt, and also it was easy for their clients to adapt. So the rate at which they were able to adapt to a new situation was fast, right? But for people like us here, that pyramid that might not have, there might be no network, they don't know how to do USSD. If they miss a single payment to maybe their supplier, they lose their goods for that month. They need constant credit lines. People that are doing like jobs where they are paid day to day. Once there's a lockdown, they begin to need, a little bit more credit for little things. They need more. If people here are not don't adapt easily, there's definitely going to be the chance where they can be squeezed out by the larger banks, because we're all in. I hope I'm still online. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, though it's breaking, but at least we're trying to follow.
It's breaking. Okay. So does anybody have any other comments, any other observation? If not, I think, okay. Chairman Laubani, I see a hand raised. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to react to what Professor Jai said.
Yeah.
The issue about the pandemic, we have necessarily has given room for microfinance sector where I belong to go digital. Because yeah, some might have been left, maybe it didn't affect them much, but some affected them greatly. Like some of my colleagues have said, revenue dropped. We just had our board meeting and we speak glaring that last year revenue was quite lower than years ago. But most MSB, those that survived that days have already gone. One major issue this has challenged, this has been is that there used to be sustainable in the business going forward. Now the question is how many MSBs in the country have the capability? And that's the area where the commercial banks have an edge. Are you getting me? Because before now, all commercial banks where I have an account that I opened far back in Lagos, and I'm what I have is I have my ATM card. Now, as a customer of a commercial of a microfinance bank, contact is the order of the day. And now the lockdown came, or the pandemic came.
Yes.
Lockdown means that I can no longer approach my bank, and I must contact for survivor. Some needed to buy food and they had money in their bank. So they are cutting corners to go to the bank. The banks were operating skeletally, like my bank. We are operating skeletally where somebody has to just come, somehow just what I'm saying is, these were greatly affected, and it has brought the need for MLBs to go digital, and you know what that means, capital intensity. So it's the speed. Those are challenges to MLBs. Professionals can easily scale to, they have the capacity, but MLBs, most MLBs will find it difficult. If the pandemic continues or another one comes, lockdown, just like again, or it's an issue because how many MLBs can cover 10 million or thereabouts to put it where your customers can be in Port Harcourt, where the bank is in Lagos. I hope it gets to it. It's an issue for us. So the survey, just like the last question we answered, the last question we answered, for us, generally, that our revenue drop. Revenue drop, profitability, profit drop. Most MLBs make loss. But the truth is that it means that for it to be sustainable, going forward, just like I'm happy with not just only addressing the pandemic, saying that in case of any emergency, every financial service provider is resilient enough to survive. Now, if any issue happens again, how well are you preparing yourself? So the truth that strategy must change. Strategy must change now, and that's all MLB.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments, and it really highlights why resilience is needed. And I must say that in developing this toolkit, we're very practical about what is possible and what is not, because we understand the constraints that each financial services provider might encounter. So not all MFBs have the funds now or the resources now to suddenly launch a big project where they are deploying this, deploying that. So which is why we also started with mitigation practices, where there are things that you can begin to put in place little by little, so that you have it almost just waiting there in case any event happens. And then even in also the adaptation recommendations that we put forward, there are things that are very practical and take into cognizance the kind of clients that you have, right? So that everybody must change. Unfortunately, we're all in the same space, people with different and varying levels of resources, but we all have to adapt. So we've taken that into account and made sure that it is very practical and it is something that you are able to do within the limits of how your business model is set up. So I'll just hand over to Timothy now. Timothy, did you say you can share the screen for the survey so that we can just get a look at how it looks?
Yes, I can. I'll do that now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so just let me know when to move.
So you might have to type in, just type in maybe initials in the spaces given. So very quickly change to the next screen and you have a range of 5 answers. How efficient is your workforce now? Is it performing even better than before? Is it performing just a little bit better? Is it the same? This kind of questions actually make you begin to look at areas that you might not have looked at in adapting to the current situation, and those are areas that you really need to look at. So So like here, where I said that we need to assess you based on pre-event. So by pre-event, we mean before whatever event it is that you are looking at. And even if there's no current event and you're just doing it to get like an update of where you stand, is a before and after scaling. So before you put in the things that you did, how are you doing? Now that you've put it in, how are you doing? And there's a comparison. So when it returns your scores, it actually scores you based on how far you've gone, either to the left or to the right, which by that I mean either positively or negatively. So there's a comparison aspect in this. And yes, so Timothy, you can move to the next one. So this one is how we ask the questions on your activities. And the questions are very they are tailored to the kind of microfinance institution that you are and the key activities that we think you should be looking at. So the place where Timothy selected the kind of institution that he is, if you had selected agents, the questions you would see here will be quite different, but will match how your business is set up.
Okay, can I skip without answering the questions?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so let me just go to the next. Okay, so it's saying I have unanswered questions.
You can continue.
Okay.
So this is talking about the results, revenue, costs, profits, just to know these changes that have happened, how much have they affected your bottom line? Oh yes, it also talks about your customer base. which is like a measure of your results as well. So here, it talks about the different resilience practices. So we looked across many different resources and what financial services players are currently doing to cope, and we put them here to know if there are things that you have done or you have not done, or even to know whether you did not know about this practice, because we want to know your awareness of normal things that are done during times of disruption. So things like reduction of your wages. Did you do it? Do you know about it, but you chose not to do it, or did you not know about it at all? So in the pilots that we did with a few participants to answer these questions, the people that performed really well did not necessarily do anything in the area of reduction of wages. They looked at other ways to manage their workforce rather than cutting wages. For some people, cutting salaries, cutting benefits, temporarily or moving it to a more performance-based model might help, right? But it's good to be able to check and see if the things that you've done, these things that you've done, are they actually making you fare better? So all these resilience practices, we put resilience practices for workforce. Timothy, please go to the next page. Continue. We put for service delivery channels. We put for finance and liquidity. Did you change your cash holding threshold? Did you change the deposit and withdrawal times? For your market position, did you do community awareness? So remember I mentioned that market position might have changed because you are no more top of mind for people because the way you set up your business model is no more convenient for them. Did you continue to talk to them? Did you continue to tell them the new things that you've done to make it easy for them to visit your branch? Let's continue. Next. And then strategy, there's so many things that you can do under strategy: collaborating with the government, changing your profitability plan, having a crisis management plan. So in the toolkit, there's also how you can build your crisis management plan so that you have a plan waiting and ready to be able to implement in case of any events that would happen. So hold on, Timothy, don't click next here. So it gives you results. So when you're done with the test, it will give you the results. You scored 23, you scored 14, and then it will ask you to subtract it. And then you write those results down. And once you go back to the scoring grid, so Timothy, stop sharing. Let me just share the scoring grid. Thank you very much. Okay, can everybody see the scoring grid?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll be very fast. I see we don't have much time. So you will see your results. You've written down your results, and you can come to this scoring grid to consult where you stand based on resources, based on activities, and based on your business strategy. So I'll just stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Dr. Banjo for closing comments. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Aramide.
Thank you.
I think, okay. So I think, like, just like we started with, I think you agree with us that it's something that will be quite useful for you, because what we actually look forward, the next step from there is for encourage you to take this diagnostic steps. So we share this one. So we need feedback. So we incorporate that feedback into the final part of the toolkit. Also form inputs or other inputs to the recommendations. Because like we're saying, not just for COVID-19 or probably even any other crisis, this situation that probably has to do with other political crisis or natural disasters or some other thing. But it's something that we should be doing, something like health check. I think we all agree, they advise us once you're getting to 40, so you'll be doing your health check. every year. So it's something that we believe we should be doing. And because of the kind of industry that we have disruptors. Technology just come with technology, or even processes that will be affecting us. So what we do, how is it affecting me? Like I like the comment from one of us. So I just look at the bottom line. Although that's the one thing, that's the major thing that we look at, just the bottom line. But it's also good for us to also drill down. So what's actually why I'm not being affected? Somebody say, oh, the transfer chain, the liquidity management, new account opening, and it's also in terms of channels. What channels are they moving? We just, because it's actually for all businesses across all industries, but this one is tailored for financial services. So we believe you find the tools very, very useful. Also welcome feedback from you even before now. So I'll hand over now to Timothy, who will share with us the next steps and what we expect from you. So we still welcome other comment, because I think our time is fast spent today. So welcome a comment from you too, but Timothy will share with us next steps. Thanks once again for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you, Dr. Banjo. So before I call on, and I'd just like to say, okay, so for next steps, we'll be sharing the link and the draft of the toolkit to some of you, and hopefully you'll be able to do the diagnostic test and come up with your results, see how it works. Then we'd like to get that feedback. So what we do with the feedback is to go back and maybe do a few iterations just to ensure that the toolkit is actually addressing your needs and is addressing them appropriately. So I think that's it for next steps. We'll be in touch. I'll work with some of your colleagues, your ESCOs, to get that done as soon as possible. So at this point in time, I would like to invite any of the NAMP ESCOs maybe to just give us a few closing remarks, feedback and things like that. Then we can call it a day. I think we're just 3 minutes overdue. We started a bit late. So Eddie.
Hello, Eddie. Can maybe Joshua can go ahead and do the closing remarks, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, Ara. Thank you, the other LBS people that spoke well this morning. I think this is a very eye-opening and very refreshing time that we have had. I want to appreciate LBS for the collaboration and for the continuous partnership with NAM and the microfinance sector. We hope to get back to you to further engage with you on this. I hope that when we come back, we'll always find you open as always to us. So I want to thank you all, and thanks to our colleagues too for taking out this time. And our desire is that the sector grows and our impact increases and felt like we should. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So before we close, when I was introducing my colleagues, Prof had not joined the call, and he's here now. So Prof is our policy lead on the Sustainable and Inclusive Digital Financial Services Initiative. For those of you that did the course on building and enhancing sustainable business models, you must have met Professor Ajayi. Our program lead is unavoidably absent today, Professor Yinka David West, but she sends her regards to everyone. But I don't know if Prof has any last words, so that we'll just listen and then we can call it a day.
I just want to really appreciate the executive and all those who have shown up today. We're really excited about financial inclusion, and anything that we can do to work together, it just gladdens us. I also want to thank Ramide, Banjo, and all my other colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. So like I said earlier, so we'll share the video for this workshop. We'll also share the link and the draft toolkit. And I'll work with the ESCOs to get as much feedback as possible. So thank you very much once again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
you.
Thank you,
you.
team. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. See
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
appreciate you always.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.